mandatory unit. We will be talking about the mandatory unit for the first BTEC extended certificate. Now, the mandatory unit, like I mentioned in the introduction, there are 3 units that made up the mandatory unit. You have Unit 1, the Unit 2, and Unit 3. The Unit 1, remember, is chemistry and our health. That's Unit 1. The Unit 2 is energy and universe, while Unit 3 is the biology and environment. Each of these units, on completion, a candidate will be awarded 5 credits. It means on completion of each of the units, your candidate will be awarded 5 units. A candidate needs to secure 15 credits in order to be awarded 1 GCSE equivalent. So it means on completion of all the 3 units, your candidate will be entitled to 1 GCSE equivalent. But the focus of this section is to look in depth at each of the units. So I will be starting with Unit 3, because it's one of the compulsory units that you have to do, one of the mandatory units that your candidate must complete in order to achieve a 1 GCSE equivalent. The Unit 3 is referred to or titled Biology and Environment. And it's a portfolio of a pass grading criteria, a merit grading criteria, and a distinction grading criteria. Inside the Unit 3, you have 6 pass grading criteria, you have 4 merit grading criteria, and you have 3 distinction grading criteria. Candidates are required to provide evidence in order to achieve any of these grading criteria. For the pass grading criteria, there are 6 of them. Your candidate will be asked to produce evidence against each of these grading criteria before they can be awarded a pass grading criteria. The merit grading criteria, there are about 4 merit grading criteria. For any candidate to achieve a merit grading criteria in this unit, they must have done the pass grading criteria completely. Then they move on to the merit grading criteria. They must have to provide evidence for the merit grading criteria. And there are 3 distinction grading criteria in this unit. So for any candidate to achieve these 3 grading criteria, they must have an evidence for the 6 pass grading criteria, for the 4 merit grading criteria, before they can move on to provide evidence for the 3 distinction grading criteria. Now I'm going to show you an example of an assignment in which a student has been requested to provide evidence for the pass grading criteria. In most cases, it's always advisable that you focus your student on the pass grading criteria. Even though EdExcel has required that students should be, or candidates should be given opportunity to attend the merit and the distinction, but for easy implementation within the classroom, it would be advisable for teachers to focus more on the pass grading criteria. Then, if a candidate is actually achieving the pass grading criteria easily, then you can move them on to the merit grading criteria, then up to the distinction grading criteria. But for easier implementation and delivery within your classroom, it's advisable you focus mainly on the pass grading criteria. Now for Unit 3, there are 6 pass grading criteria that your student or your candidate have to provide evidence for. So we're going to look at Unit 3 in the next section.